So we started our work as the European Community Foundation Initiative on the SDGs in around 2017, 2018. And I suppose the approach would have been one where we thought, right, we need to educate people about the SDGs. We need to teach, what they are and encourage the community foundations across Europe that this is an area of work that they should consider, and they should align their programs, and they should support activities that are relevant to the SDGs. And we started trying to do that, and really we found that this sort of fell on deaf ears, that it was seen then to be, an additional burden, that it was something new and to learn about, that it would take resources, and that so what? We do this anyway. So what's the added value in this? So we then decided to turn it on its head in a way, and it comes back to this point you've said about how do you make the SDGs cool. We said to ourselves, and in discussion with community foundations around Europe, saying, to look at this from the perspective of if we can get some value by engaging with the SDG framework, then it will be a benefit to the community foundation. And because we've already assumed that most of the work, if not all of the work of community foundations is in some way contributing to one or numerous goals, then that is good for the SDGs, and the SDGs are good for us. So there's this mutual benefit from it. And I come back to this point about the work of community foundations in relation to the SDGs, that it's not very difficult to identify that well, certainly for us anyway, that the work that they're doing can be aligned to various goals. In fact, recently, somebody said at one of our meetings, the more difficult challenge is to try and relate something as simple as the SDG goals into the complexity of the work of a community foundation, so that the framework is almost overly simple for what community foundations do. And I think that reflects the nature of the multi-dimensional work, that it's rarely is it single goal oriented, that multiple goals that come into play, and so on. So our starting point then became not the SDGs, but the starting point became the work of community foundations, and to engage with them, talking around what they do, and then relate that to the goals rather than the other way around. And once that was done, there almost was a mind shift within the community foundations, that they're saying, this isn't additional. We do this anyway. And here is a framework that helps us describe what we do, puts it into a context that is global, that is understood by others, can be useful in terms of our relationships with partners, with donors, with public agencies, even to frame our impact, or, as is the case in Canada, vital signs, to connect those sorts of assessments of the local area into one that is now framed by the goals. And so once that mind shift had taken place, then there was the ability to then say, well, let's use this framework to our benefit, and make no apologies for being selfish about this, because, as I've said, if it's good for community foundations, then ultimately it'll be even more good for the goals in the longer run, because community foundations will be able to have greater impact. So we then looked at the various dimensions, and this is where the first document, connecting community foundations with the SDGs, sort of builds around this whole of organization approach. So not to think of the SDGs just as a pick and mix in various goals that we do X, Y, and Z that contribute to goal 3, goal 1, goal 7, or whatever, but rather to embrace the whole thing, and appreciate that the whole of organization means dealing with right from your mission through investments to strategy and programs, your communications and own operations critically. So adopting this whole organization approach was quite fundamental to this, to really get it in within the organization, within the DNA of the Community Foundation. And you know, we saw through that the framework being adopted and the SDGs being embraced in a way that then would help, as I say, with donor relations, with partnering arrangements, with impact assessment and so on. So that was that first document. And then we ran a number of workshops and we, like yourselves, we have a number of different support organizations, as you have state associations of community foundations. We would have that national level in Europe. So ECFI worked with UKCF, for example, with Acifero in Italy, with the Romanian Federation in Romania, with the Spanish Association in Spain, and so on, to help them deliver. And this was important for us because it had to be delivered in the national language to engage appropriately with the relevant community foundations, to deliver workshops that started to sort of work through how to adopt this whole of organization approach. And Lydia, I'm really interested that you're starting this journey and you're thinking about it, because the critical thing is sort of the timing and how you get the conversation started. Who are the critical players within the organization, on your own board, in your staff team, with your partners and so on, to get the conversations going, and importantly, to identify and to make the case as appropriate to you of why you should embrace the SDGs. And we've been doing that for a few years, and continuing to, you know, have SDGs as a thread running through all of our work. And then we had this review meeting in June with a number of the national support organizations, and we reflected a little bit on what the challenges had been. And a really good example came out, and that's what's highlighted in that second report that you included from Northampton, and the support that they'd got from UKCF. And you know, they have really taken a whole of organization approach to the SDGs, and you'll see from that report how by embracing the SDGs, they've enhanced stakeholder engagement. They've used it to promote conversations with stakeholders. They've used it as the basis for their strategy development. It's been marvelous for motivating staff and trustees. They have this idea of goal champions. So across their team, people adopt a goal, and whether that's someone who works front desk or whether it's someone who's back office in research, they are still part of it. So the whole team is engaged in some way and engaging with the SDGs, that it's not just some sort of Cinderella activity that is run by the grants department or the development department within the organization. And through that, they've attracted new donors. They've developed new partnerships with some corporate donors and some private donors that have related to them because they've been able to place their work within a global context of the SDGs. This connecting local to global has been a really fulfilling aspect for them. It's also been useful for community engagement to stimulate the conversations around issues and to build the partnerships. And finally, as you'll see, and if you go on to the Northampton Shire Community Foundation website, their impact report is based around the goals. So they've taken it lock, stock and barrel, and they've never looked back. But the timing was critical as to how to get that started within the organization. And that's what I think most people face as being the major challenge, is how do I get the momentum within my organization. And this is where, you know, making it cool or making the case is really important. And I think if you get all of the elements that we refer to in terms of the whole organization approach, and if you can see the benefits clearly and believe in those benefits yourself, then it's so much easier to make the case.